never thought I'd be telling this story. Not because I'm ashamed, though there were times I was, but because I still can't quite believe it happened to me. To us. My name is Rachel Monroe, and I'm a 45-year-old mother living in a small town outside of Austin, Texas. I've worked hard my entire life. I married young, like many of us did back then, and I thought I'd found my partner in life. His name was Dean. For 20 years, we built what I believed was a simple but steady life, raising our son Jacob, saving every extra penny, planning for a modest but comfortable future. Keyword there is believed. Because one spring afternoon, everything I thought I knew about my marriage and about Dean fell apart like a house made of paper. It was a Saturday. I remember because I had just returned from the grocery store, and Jacob was upstairs doing his homework. Dean was unusually quiet, sitting at the kitchen table, not even pretending to scroll his phone or flip through a newspaper like he usually did. His eyes were puffy. His hands trembled around his coffee mug. I thought he was sick. Or that maybe he'd lost his job. That alone would have been devastating enough. But what he said next shattered me. "Rachel, I messed up. Bad," he said. "I need to tell you something before it all comes crashing down." My heart sank. And then, just like that, he told me everything. That over the past year, he had been secretly withdrawing money from our joint savings account. First, a few hundred here and there, a little white lie about car repairs or helping a friend, but it snowballed. Eventually, he was pulling thousands at a time. All told, he had drained over $32,000. Every cent we'd saved for Jacob's college, for emergencies, for our future. Gone. Wasted. He had gambled it away at the casinos down in Louisiana. Not once. Not twice. Repeatedly. Sometimes winning a little, just enough to give him false hope, but losing more each time. He cried as he told me. Said he was sorry. Said he never meant to hurt me. That it was an addiction. That he was going to get help. But all I could hear over and over again in my mind was that number. $32,000. And I think the part that broke me the most was that he never told me until he had no choice. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything or call him names or demand he leave the house that second, though every nerve in my body was begging me to. Instead, I just stood there, hands still clutching the grocery bags, and felt the blood drain from my face. It was like my body had gone cold and my heart was suspended in silence. Jacob came downstairs asking for a snack, and I somehow managed to smile at him and say, "It's in the fridge, baby." I don't even know how I said it without falling apart. That night, Dean slept on the couch. Not because I told him to, I never even said a word after his confession. I just went to our bedroom, closed the door, and stared at the ceiling for hours, feeling like the walls were closing in. I couldn't even cry. For the next few days, I was numb. I went to work. I packed Jacob's lunch. I cooked dinner. But I was a ghost walking through my own life. I checked our bank statements, logged into every account, and confirmed it all. It was gone. I felt violated. Betrayed. Not just as a wife, but as a mother. Because it wasn't just my future Dean stole from, it was Jacob's too. His dreams, his education, his safety net. Also, Dean could sit under the neon lights of a casino and chase some fantasy of fast money and excitement. I confronted him again on the fourth day. I asked him if there was more. If he'd borrowed from anyone. If we were in any legal trouble. He swore there wasn't. "I'll fix this," he kept saying. "Just give me time, Ratch." But how do you fix trust that's been ground into dust? How do you fix the fact that your son's college fund was fed into slot machines? He begged me not to leave. He offered to go to counseling, to join a support group, to sign over everything in his name. I think part of him believed that if he showed enough desperation, I'd stay. But what he didn't understand, what so many people don't understand, is that love is a fragile thing. You can patch over cracks, sure. But when someone drills a hole through the foundation, the whole house shifts. It's never the same again. I spoke to a lawyer 2 weeks later. And that's when I made the hardest but clearest decision of my life. I filed for divorce. The day I handed Dean the divorce papers was the first time I saw real silence in him. Not anger. Not sorrow. Just stillness. He didn't argue. He didn't yell. He didn't beg. He just looked down at the paperwork, hands trembling again, and whispered, "I really ruined everything, didn't I?" I nodded. "Yes, you did." There's a strange kind of grief that comes with ending a marriage. It's not like a death because the person is still alive, walking around, breathing, sometimes even smiling. But the idea of them, the version you built in your mind, that dies. And that death is quiet, private, like something you bury in the middle of the night when no one's watching. We tried to keep things calm for Jacob. He was 16 at the time, old enough to sense something was wrong but too young to understand the weight of it. I told him we were separating because we needed different things in life, a white lie to protect him, at least for now. Dean moved into a friend's garage apartment on the east side of town. I stayed in the house. I got a second job waiting tables on weekends to try and make up for some of the lost savings. I didn't sleep much. Some nights I'd stare at my ceiling again, just like the night he confessed, wondering how I'd let myself be blindsided. But then Jacob would come downstairs in the morning, hair messy, rubbing sleep from his eyes and asking if we still had cereal, and that would ground me. That boy kept me sane. That boy gave me purpose. People told me I was brave, that I was doing the right thing. But it didn't feel brave. Felt like surviving. Like I was swimming against a current with a weight tied around my ankles. Court process was smoother than I expected. Dean didn't contest anything. He seemed too ashamed, too broken. I didn't ask for alimony, I just wanted out. I wanted peace. I wanted to start over. By the time the divorce was finalized, 6 months had passed. Dean didn't attend the final hearing. I signed the papers alone, sitting in a cold courtroom with a stack of documents in front of me and a stranger in a black robe declaring the end of 20 years of my life in less than 5 minutes. Just like that, I was no longer a wife. I was just Rachel again. And strangely, that brought me comfort. Starting over at 45 is a strange thing. Your body isn't what it used to be. Your skin doesn't bounce back like it once did, and neither does your heart. But in the quiet that followed the divorce, I found something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Control. For the first time in years, no one was lying to me. No one was hiding late-night withdrawals or making excuses for disappearing weekends. I could look at my bank account and know exactly what was there, even if it wasn't much. I cut expenses. I canceled cable, started meal prepping, shopped secondhand. Jacob and I would sit at the kitchen table at night, going over college scholarships and student aid like it was a game plan before a big football match. We weren't where we hoped we'd be financially, but we were a team. And that meant more to me than any number in a savings account. Meanwhile, Dean, he was sinking. I heard through friends that he'd lost his job not long after moving out. Something about repeated absences and suspicious borrowing from coworkers. Then came the eviction from the garage apartment. Then rumors of him sleeping in his car for a while. Eventually, someone spotted him at a shelter on the outskirts of Austin. I didn't hate him. I didn't even want revenge. But I also didn't go chasing after him to help. He made his choices. And the only reason I wasn't in his shoes was because I'd chosen differently. One night, almost a year after the divorce, I was closing up at the diner when he came in. He looked thin. Hollow. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. He sat at the corner booth and didn't say a word until I walked over. For a moment, I thought he was going to ask for food, maybe even money. But all he said was, "Jacob okay?" I nodded. "He's doing well. Working hard." Dean gave a soft smile. It looked painful, like his muscles had forgotten how to do it. "That's good," he said. "He was always a good kid. He didn't ask about me. didn't offer an apology or explanation. And I didn't expect one. Through a few minutes of silence, he stood, nodded once, and walked out into the night. That was the last time I saw him. Through that night, I finally closed the chapter on Dean for good. There was no need for anger anymore. No need to replay the past in my head, or wonder how things might have turned out if he'd just been honest with me from the beginning. Some things aren't meant to be fixed, they're meant to be released. Like dead branches that need pruning so the rest of the tree can bloom. And bloom we did. Jacob graduated high school with honors. He didn't get into the fancy private universities, but he was accepted into a solid public college with a good engineering program, and he earned enough scholarships to make it manageable. I cried the day we packed up his things and drove him to campus. Not because I was sad, but because I was so damn proud. He had grown up in the middle of a storm, and he still came out strong and steady. At home, life quieted down. I took a full-time position at the diner, not glamorous work, but honest. I started baking again on weekends, something I hadn't done since Jacob was small. I even signed up for a community yoga class, mostly to meet people my age. At first I felt like the odd one out, older, divorced, not exactly where I'd planned to be. But then I met other women with stories not so different from mine. Turns out I wasn't alone. Turns out a lot of us had been burned by men we trusted. A lot of us had rebuilt from ashes one day at a time. And somewhere in that, I began to feel like myself again. Not Rachel the wife or Rachel the survivor, just Rachel. A woman who'd weathered heartbreak and betrayal, who raised a son with grit and love, who didn't fold when life tried to break her. I saved what I could. Took Jacob out for burgers when he came home on weekends. Spent time watching old westerns with my dad. Stitched small joys into the fabric of my life like patches on a worn-out quilt. I never remarried. People asked me if I was open to it. And maybe someday I will be. But right now I'm content. 'Cause peace, I've learned, isn't about perfect endings or clean slates. It's about knowing that whatever storm tries to shake you next, you've already survived worse. And you're still standing. It's been 5 years now since the day Dean confessed, and my world changed forever. And I'm not going to pretend every day since has been easy, because it hasn't. There were moments I was angry at myself for not seeing the signs, moments I cried into a pillow so Jacob wouldn't hear me, and moments I felt like a failure for not protecting our family's future. But those moments passed. They always do. What stayed, what grew stronger with time, was a quiet kind of strength. The kind that doesn't scream or demand attention, but shows up every morning, puts 2 feet on the floor, and says, "Let's go again." Dean never got back on his feet, as far as I know. The last I heard, he was staying at a halfway house in San Antonio, trying to stay sober, picking up day labor here and there. I wish him no harm. I hope he finds whatever healing he needs, but that chapter of my life is closed, sealed, and shelved. Jacob is 21 now. He's taller than me, broader too, and every time he wraps me in a hug, I feel like I'm being held by something I helped create from scratch. He's got a part-time job, takes his studies seriously, and still calls me Mama when he's tired or homesick. He doesn't know all the details about what happened between me and Dean. Someday I might tell him. Not out of bitterness, but as a lesson about money, about trust, and about self-respect. Because if there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that love without respect is a ticking time bomb. And a family without honesty is a house built on sand. I tell this story now not for sympathy, I don't need that, but for any woman out there sitting in her car outside a courthouse, or crying in a grocery store aisle, or silently staring at her bank account wondering where it all went. You're not weak for trusting. You're not broken because someone else broke the rules. And you are absolutely strong enough to rebuild, even if you have to start from nothing. I started with $63 in my account, a heart full of cracks, and a teenage son looking to me for answers. Now I have a peaceful home, a son who respects me, community who knows my name, and a life not flashy or rich but mine. And that, my friend, is worth more than $32,000 ever was.